Yes, ma'am. All right. I'd like to call the meeting for the Village of Campton Hills to order. It's August 20th, 2024, 7:02 p.m. Please stand for a roll call, please.
Trustee Boatner? Here. Trustee Burson?
Here.
Trustee McElvey? Here. Trustee Millette?
Present.
Trustee Muncy?
Here.
Trustee Williams?
Here.
President Wojnicki?
Present. Okay, please rise for the pledge. And Tom Williams, will you lead us in the pledge? All right, moving on to number 4, consent agenda. Is there
No public
any?
comments?
Oh, excuse me, I'm jumping the public comments.
Kim Muir?
Evening all. That's way too tall for me, by the way. Just saying. Okay, hopefully you got, you received the email that Tracy, the clerk, sent to you from the Technology Committee. So I'm here tonight as the chair of the Technology Committee. Just wanted to clarify and go, and if there was any questions perhaps or whatever, maybe when you get to the generator issue on the agenda, if you have any questions for the Technology Committee, feel free to ask. But we felt compelled that we needed to send a letter of recommendation that at the very least that you cover the police department services and all of their needs, including the network infrastructure, because part of that network, the network infrastructure supports the police department as well. It would be great if we could have the entire building, but it might not be in the budget or have the money, but we really do need to have power here. The last couple power outages we had showed that there was definitely a need, even during that one board meeting. So, okay. Anyways, that's about all I've got. Maybe from Public Works Committee, I'm not the chair on that, but I am on the committee. And whatever we can do to help McDonald Road, we definitely agree, okay, especially after the fatality, when we've discussed it before. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kim. That's it? Okay. All right, moving on to number 4, consent agenda. Anything to remove from the consent agenda? Trustee Muncy?
Thank you, President Winicky. I'd like to remove items 4A and 4C, please.
4A and 4C. Anybody else? Anything to remove from the consent agenda? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to move the consent agenda with the exception of 4A, and 4C.
Second.
Moved by Trustee McKelvey, second by Trustee Burson. Okay, roll call.
Trustee McElvey? Aye. Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner? Aye. Trustee Millette?
All right.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Floor is yours, Ed.
4A and 4C, I honestly just want to abstain on both of those, so wanted to remove those for that purpose, that's all.
Okay,
Can we also do 4C for an amendment? We have a line item in warrant number 2508 was duplicated to HR Green for the services rendered with the geotechnical analysis, was actually in there twice individually and part of HR Green's invoice. So the warrant for HR Green total payment is going to be $69,822.23 for a final warrant total of, I have it in here, $627,725.91.
I move to amend the warrant list as specified by the clerk.
okay. Motion made by
Second.
Trustee Burson, second by Trustee Millette. And roll call, please.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Millette?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Let's see. Trustee McElvey?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Abstain.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay,
Move
moving
to
on.
approve
we
the
s-
minutes.
We still have minutes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I move to approve the minutes of July 16th, 2024 board meeting.
Second.
Okay, Trustee Millette?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner or Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee McKelvey?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Abstain.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Now to move on to 5A, Police Department, and Chief Levan will give us a report.
Thank you. I apologize in advance, but this is what happens with once-a-month meetings, so I'll try to make this as quick as possible. For the July monthly police department report, calls for service 158, 9 accidents, 68 citations, no arrest. National Night Out was held on Tuesday, August 6th. The weather was not perfect, but it was a huge success as usual. Probably we estimate 11,000 residents and visitors took part in the event. It was nice seeing everyone from the village that attended. That included the village president, administrator, all the trustees. It was actually probably our largest and I was getting to him, so he's a little farther down the line here. So it was nice to see such a good turnout from the village side. It probably was the largest one since I've been doing National Night Out, so it was nice to see. So I do want to recognize, like, we had some sponsors of the event that included our legal team with Carmen over there, so I want to say kudos and thanks because they sponsored a couple different activities we had there, including skates. That was the mascot from the Chicago Wolves, the huge obstacle course. So I wanted to say thank you for that. Appreciate it very much. I told you he was on my list a little farther down. So I just want to thank everyone that took part, all the vendors, participants. A huge thank you to Community Relations Committee. They work hard all year long putting that together. That doesn't happen overnight. They literally will stop that and now start working on next year. So they do a great job. CPA alumni and CERT helped out as usual, so that was great. The department implemented 12-hour shifts the end of July, so we are officially on our 12-hour shifts. July 30th, the department completed a multi-jurisdictional training. It was hosted by the Hampshire Police Department. Thank you to them. They allowed us to come out, take part in it. It was for active shooter training at one of their schools, and it was at no cost. So a big thank you to Hampshire. I attended the District 303 safety meeting August 2nd. Happens every year prior to the school district going back. It's for all the first responders. They have made some upgrades this year to safety and security. They're going to have a new exterior security cameras being installed at Belgraham and Wasco. There'll be 5 on the exterior, which is much overdue. They're also changing the process for everyone to get in and out of the schools to swipe cards, so they're still working that out. And there was a change this year to the start and finish time. They've moved it back, so they don't start to 9:05 and they end at 3:15 this year. The 2024 school year obviously started August 14th for both our schools. It's always a busy time for the police department. One thing I want to say about our police department, kudos to them. Most larger municipalities have SROs, school resource officers, assigned to their schools full-time. We don't have that. Yet we provide the same exact services to both of our schools that larger municipalities do without having a designated SRO in those schools. That's because of the police department staff, the relationships we have with both the schools. So it's just a big kudos to the department because we do a great job with both our schools. I'm not done. Thank you to Trustee Boatner, not just for me in the police department, from the village, the trustees, his own time. He came in, we had some emergency lighting issues here at Village Hall that would have cost money to have us have a contractor come in. His experience, his time, he was willing to come in here a couple times and get those replaced for us. So a big thank you to Trustee Boatner for doing that. Annual Fall Fest at CUCC, that's going to be scheduled September 14th. I've already met with the organizers, discussed the needs for this year's event. Just like previous years, the department will provide extra watch the night before while all the volunteers get the food ready. During the event, I already told them we'll have 2 officers assigned to it to make sure it goes smoothly. We'll assist with traffic control, especially after the fireworks, which are scheduled for 8:30, and CERT will also be there helping us. KDOT, which Mike is here in the audience, so a big thanks to KDOT. So I want to actually say thank you to both. KDOT, Ray's over there from Camden Township Highway Department. Like the things we do, especially me on the police side, like that's just not from me. That's from a lot of different people. So if there's safety concerns, stuff that needs to be addressed, like I can't do those stuff magically. I turn to other people for assistance, and both of them are great. But KDOT by winter time is going to hopefully finish the improvements to Silver Glen and Burlington, which will become a 4-way stop. that is much overdue. The reason I want to point it out is kudos to Mike and KDOT, because they did a traffic study there, and the original traffic study said it did not meet the criteria for improvements at that intersection. They didn't give up. They went back and did the study again, and it met the criteria to do it. So that is going to be a huge improvement safety-wise for us and all the motorists that travel that route, to put that as a four-way stop, because it's long overdue. So thanks to KDOT for that. I want to take a minute, and everyone knows this, everyone has already seen this, but I want to recognize the senseless and tragic murder of Sonia Massey from a Sangamon County deputy that everyone has seen on the news. Thoughts and prayers are with the Massey family and friends. It's tragic, it's unexplainable. Like, I don't care who you are. I've talked to every officer I know out there that's seen the video, and there is no explanation for it. Unfortunately, the actions of one is bad on an entire law enforcement community across the whole U.S. That's just how it is. And the reason I bring this up, last board meeting, Trustee Burson had brought up a good point about our background checks, the money that we spend on background checks, and is it worth it? That's your answer right there. 100% it's worth it. Because if background checks were conducted on him, this possibly would not have happened. He worked for 6 different agencies in 4 years, including 2 DUIs and a bunch of conduct issues. Background checks were ignored on this, and that is where we're at because of that. So, yes, sometimes it's expensive. Is it worth it? 100% it's worth it. Like, my goal is obviously to have officers that are the best officers for the department and the community. So by us doing thorough background checks, psych tests, all these other things, can we guarantee every officer is going to be good or not get in trouble? No, we can't. But we can do our best to ensure, because the community demands that. So yes, it was absolutely worth it, spending the extra money and taking a little more extra time for it. What ties into that is they are talking about doing a federal conduct database for law enforcement. This is overdue. So every state would be tied into this database. It would be a requirement by law enforcement to report it to this database. So if an officer does wrong, that officer moves to Florida, wants to get another job, everyone can go to this national database, look this officer up, and see his history. So I support it. Hopefully all other law enforcement does, and it's something that gets going. So CODA did his last demonstration August 10th for Hampshire Coon Creek Days. Huge turnout. It was amazing. The conclusion of the demonstration, CODA and I were presented with a proclamation by Village President Mike Reed and the Village Trustees of Hampshire. Over the last 5 years, we provided K-9 assistance to Hampshire on many calls, including drug searches, tracking of criminals, locating missing persons, and community presentations. We've also provided their yearly drug sweep at 2 schools in Hampshire every year. We still have another one coming up. The proclamation was a surprise, but it was greatly appreciated, so I wanted to thank village presidents and their trustees for recognizing CODA for his time and work assisting the village of Hampshire, so it was very nice of him. CODA is retiring. It's going to be October, November this year. Even after CODA retires, he will still be around to take part in community stuff. He's leaving police work. He's leaving his demonstrations. He's getting older. He's a big boy, and his hips are starting to bother him. So it's time that he gets to enjoy retirement, but he will still be around to do community stuff. One final thing for you is I'm happy to report Dan Hatt, Officer Hatt, filled out a grant for us through iLetsby, and it was approved for $30,600 to cover our body cams, our squad cams, and our data storage. So that is a big chunk of money because we know our technology line for the department keeps going up every year. We have no say in that. Those are requirements by law, but that $30,600 will be a big help to be able to offset some of that. And now I am done.
All right, thank you, Chief. Moving on to finance report, and we have Timothy with us.
How about now? Okay. You should have received in your board packet the 3-month year-to-date financials. There's not too much to report. I'll give you some very quick highlights. On page 1, line 7, general revenue funds, was 25% of the year complete. We've already received 32.4% of the revenue, budgeted revenue. So we're looking good there on revenue. Looking down at line 18, we've only incurred 20.5% of the general fund expenditures, even though we're 25% done with the year. So that's very good. Regarding the other funds, the revenue pieces are, coming in at the right levels. The expenditures you don't see there yet because we haven't incurred many, especially in MFT and the road and bridge funds. But as you know, you are about to approve a very large warrant, so those expenditures will start coming in. And on the very final page are the cash balances, along with the interest rates that they're earning. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
All right. Trustee McKelvey, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, no, just a question. At the last meeting, we had a discussion as a board about the balances at the First American Bank. And I know Administrator Rooney and myself had a conversation. This is dated 8/16, so I don't know how accurate the summary is on page 10. Are those accurate?
As of 8/16, yes.
Okay, but, all right, said another way, have we now transferred some of the funds out of the American Bank?
No, actually, we've transferred even more funds into the operating account as of today.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess, let me restate it. According to this, we have what? You got 327,000 in operating dollars.
Correct.
You've got 171,000, well, that's ARPA, and then you got the money market of 81,000. So the discussion we had as a group was a concern, and I've raised this in the past, I know a number of other trustees have cited it as well. It's so easy to transfer funds from Illinois funds. If you did it on a Thursday, I believe by Friday, because that's the way the other treasurers used to do it, you'd have the money in there to pay your bills.
Correct.
So why have $580,000 in American fund not earning as much as Illinois funds? So that, I mean, we need money for all kinds of things, roads especially come to mind, and we should earn as much as we can with our funds. And right now, we have $500,000 not earning as much as they could be.
Sure. Very legitimate concern. I'll say two things on that. The money that is in the First American Bank institution is earning interest, except for $327,000. And the reason why that is because I believe there was about a $275,000 check that we anticipated to be cleared that week. We wrote the check. We have to have the money available in the operating account. I believe that check cleared the next day. So it wouldn't be prudent to not have $275,000 in the operating account on August 16th if we cut the check
I'm not
the day
arguing that.
before.
Yeah.
Now, the issue with having more money in the Illinois funds versus First American Bank, I think in the finance industry, they would call that, institutional risk. You don't want to have all your money in one institution. Obviously, you're going to favor one that's going to give you a higher interest rate. I've had this problem in the past with Illinois funds, and I even had the problem today when I had to transfer of funds to the pension fund. You have to do it on the phone. You can't do it but via computer. And if they don't have all the information, they won't move the money. And by information, just today, they said they didn't have the right FEIN number for the pension fund, so they wouldn't move the money. And I'd moved money before, and I had to call them a second time, and they had the wrong information. So the point being is if I had all the money in Illinois First, or Illinois funds, and I ran into that snafu where I couldn't move the money, then we'd have a problem if we already issued checks and those checks went to clear. So I think it makes sense to not put all your money in one institution.
Yeah, again, I'm not suggesting that you put all the money in one institution. I'm suggesting that you put the 90% of the money, because the warrants are paid, how often do we pay bills? Twice a month?
Correct.
Okay. So twice a month, you do 2 transfers.
Correct.
Based on what the warrants cost. So on Thursday, we voted on a total of what those bills were tonight. What were they? You read it off. $620,000. So if today you knew that total was $620,000, I would have made the call today, right, to do that. okay?
That's what I did.
That's what
Okay,
you did.
that's
So,
good.
we're on the same page.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, but the point is, as of August, all I'm saying is, you still have way too much in these funds.
No, I disagree. If I have a $275,000 check
No, I
that's
understand. I
outstanding.
got that, Pete.
I have to have at least that much money in my operating account.
Okay, all right, and you do. You had 500, you had almost $600,000 in there.
No, in my operating account, I have $327,000.
Well, no, I understand that, but I'm looking at all of what you have in First American Bank. That's
Correct.
That's $600,000.
Which is earning interest, just
Some
not
of it's
as
earning
much.
interest, but it's not earning as much interest as Illinois funds. Well, I tell you what, I don't want to belabor the point, but I believe there was a consensus of this board that we should be a little more judicious as it relates to how we move these funds and when we move. Because I think we're leaving money on the table. If you recall, 2 meetings ago, at one time, we had $900,000 in this funds, in these funds, in the American Bank. And I raised the issue then. And every time I raise it, I feel like the voice crying in the wilderness, because we're still looking at $600,000 in there. I don't think that's wise responsibility of the funds of this village.
Trustee Muncy, you had your hand up next.
Thank you, President Winicky. Just to clarify, I think we have said this multiple times that we would like to put the majority of funds that are not going to be immediately used or have not been earmarked to be used in the very near future should be gaining the greatest amount of interest in Illinois funds and then transferred over as necessary into First American to be paid. Maybe we haven't been clear enough about exactly what percentages or what we mean by that. I'm going to suggest that the administrative president maybe poll us after the meeting or by email, why don't we come up with a policy, an actual policy that says what we really want to do here, rather than saying we should have most of or a lot of or whatever. Maybe quantify it so it's clearer for everybody.
Go ahead, Trustee Burson.
I agree with Trustee Muncy. However, I think it's unlikely that as a group, we would suggest that having barely more than 10% of our money in spendable funds is excessive or extravagant. I'm curious if we were to assume that at any given moment, let's call it half of this $580,000. If we were to assume, let's fully half of it, I don't think it is, but if we said fully half of it was excess, right?
I'm sorry,
If we were to
excess?
say fully half of it were excess, $290,000 was unnecessary, times 0.5% a month, right? At best, on a good day that we're getting, right? I mean, how much money are we talking about here? I mean, it's not tens of thousands of dollars, right? So it seems to me that we have substantially met the directive of keeping the majority of our available cash in Illinois funds and having this relatively modest amount of money available for the actual real spending that you have to do in the warrants that you have to pay doesn't sound inappropriate at all. But I do have a question, which Trustee Millette brought up to me as we kibitz for a second here. What is the almost $82,000 in the money market about?
Why is it there?
Yeah, why do we have why are we running a money market account at First American? What does that do for us differently from the operating account?
Well, you don't have to have a money market account at First American Bank at all. You could have it all at Illinois Funds. I don't know the history of how long we've had
Are we getting
it.
substantially more money for the little bit that's in the money market versus the operating account?
I'm sorry, can you
Are we
repeat?
getting a substantially greater return on the $82,000 in the money market versus in the operating account?
Yeah, 3.16% in interest as opposed to no interest in the
Right.
operating
So,
account.
not a lot, really.
More specifically, the ARPA money is sitting at the same. So I don't, if there's a differentiation between, because both of those say they're at 3.16. So if that's the investment rainy day sitting in the easy to get cash, that makes sense. But if it's I mean, and the other stuff is just sitting straight and checking, I'm guessing, as of
To
this
pay-
report.
to pay the
27
warrants.
It's the warrants. Right, so is it sensible to have a money market to hold the rest of that stuff, and then we just know that's more the immediate rainy day fund sitting in there, or is there another tool that makes more sense?
Well, I think that the trustee McCalvey was making the point that IMET is closer to just shy of 5%, and that's 3.6, so we're giving away a 1% with any money in the money market. So that was the issue, but the ARPA is, got $48,800 audited balance right now, and when we get to the generator, that'll be important. But it's not, that's the historical kind of.
The question is why are there three separate accounts?
Well, we need the operating account, which is our, to clear the warrants.
Right.
And our bills. And the.
And ARPA's mandated to be a separate account, or at least we've chosen.
Well, we
do it
chose
that
to
way.
do that. It's, as long as it's accounted,
Understood.
we don't have to have a separate account. But the real difference is IMET versus the money market. And there was traditionally not a lot of sway to that. But over the last 2 years, IMET has grown much, much faster than the
So 2 years
banks.
ago, they were virtually equivalent, and you wouldn't have
Or
cared.
3
It was a- it
years,
was a
probably
push,
3 years ago.
Right. It
Pre-COVID.
was a push, but now it's.
Now it's, with interest rates going up and inflation, the IMET is a better investment
So
tool.
to trustee McAlvey's point, we might be well advised, if we thought that we wanted 82,000 in a money market, maybe it would be better in the Illinois funds.
But 10 years ago, IMET got into a situation where there was fraud committed to it, and there was substantial amounts of money that was at risk to not being accounted for. So there was probably a decision in this village, like many across Illinois, that they diversified their account to not have everything in IMET, because they did have a scandal of big proportion. And I know in Carpentersville, we were looking at not getting $2 million for a long length of time.
Thank you.
And stuff. So it's probably a result of that issue, but IMET has been rock solid since that incursion a decade ago. So it is a better investment tool. But we're just, if there was a policy to don't use anything except the 5%, close to 4.8% account, and close the other fund, Tim and I are not going to debate you on that, if that's what you want to do, and count on IMET not having another snafu. It's just something that was probably decided and it just kept, and that's where it's comes from. Many villages in Illinois have done that as a result of that. But with that better interest rate, you can always change.
Okay, that's trustee Muncy, you were next.
Thank
and
you,
then-
President Winnicke.
Yeah.
Trustee Burson expressed her opinion. I suggest, again, you poll all of us, or we have discussions offline, emails, that sort of thing, because my opinion would differ on how much money should be making the greatest amount of interest at 5.37 versus the others. I think we'll all have different opinions there, but the main thing is our treasurer is dealing with something that was never probably explained, and just a historical way of doing this. It would be better if we, as a board, gave him clear direction, any treasurer clear direction on, here's how we really would like to have it handled. So, again, I suggest that we kind of do that offline rather than trying to hash it out right now.
Okay, trustee Williams, you were next.
Thank you,
and
Madam
then-
President. I think what I'm seeing here is consensus, because what Jim's saying is, hey, if it's $500, it's $500. If it's 1,000, it's 1,000. Everything's better. You know what I mean? So I always feel like if we can come up with something that makes it better, that'd be great. I'm not saying that you're not doing your job either. I mean, that bank money market sounds low to me. I mean, I've seen banks locally giving 5% on money markets. That's going to change. But, the idea of high interest rates is relatively a new thing. It hasn't been around since about, 1985? I don't remember. So, but I think it would be a good to get consensus, because I think we all have consensus that, every dime matters. And it's, it's not our money. It's the citizens' money. So if we can come up with a plan, that'd be great. If it's a new bank, if it's whatever.
If diversifying is not a goal, we'll go with the highest rate. I think that's the consensus I'm hearing.
I am concerned about the Illinois thing you brought up, though.
They've been rock solid ever since that
Okay, well,
issue.
makes me nervous anyway, so.
To be clear, that IMED issue was not poor investment decisions, it was fraud. It was clear fraud, and sometimes you just can't think your way out of some third party initiating fraud.
Trustee McKelvey, one last comment.
Yeah, last comment, I think Trustee Williams summarized it. I mean, we have too many accounts. We should blow up the money market account and diversify those funds into Illinois funds and have an operating fund and transfer them twice a month or as needed. That's simple. Thanks.
Tim, anything else with you?
No,
No?
thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Action item 6A, it's a motion to approve resolution 24-17, authorizing execution of an agreement with the law office of Lauren E. Jackson for property researching services. And Kathleen Judy's a representative from Lauren E. Jackson, and she'd be doing the work. And so I'm going to let her say a few words.
Well, good
Oh,
evening.
I'm sorry, hang on there, Kath. Motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Who did, all right, moved
Take it
by
back.
Burson, second by Millet. All right, roll call? No? Okay. All right, Kathleen, go ahead.
Is this going to work? Okay. Yes, my name is Kathleen Judy, and I work with Lauren Jackson in St. Charles, and I have done real estate, probate, estate planning since about 2019. I have a long history in Campton, the Campton area, Campton Hills before it was Campton Hills, and it was Campton Township, and I am looking to help you. I was approached by Barb, and she and I began the open space program years and years and years ago, along with a whole other group of people. And we put together the open space plan, and the township passed it, and the voters voted it in, and it's been very successful, as you know. And now Campton Hills enjoys a lot of these open space properties, and these open space properties need to be on a zoning map. And that's why I've been asked to help you out, because I do a lot of real estate and actually work with the county somewhat too with zoning. So I still have my fingers in the whole zoning area, but you know, not to the extent that maybe your attorneys do, but I do know that a zoning map needs to go with your zoning ordinance, and you only have a zoning ordinance right now. And so my job is, and it's your assignment really, and so I'd like to hear more about what you want. But from Barb and Mark Rooney, they tell me the things they want from me is, so I work with a lot of title companies when I do research for all the, I do residential and commercial properties and farm properties too, but I work with title companies and we bring down title, and I was going to help you out by, and this is what they've asked me to do, checking on all the restrictions of record. So there are conservation easements, there are farmland protection designations, there are a number of different types of open space protections. I've talked a little bit to Jerry Johnson, and I know that working with the zoning commission would be a big part of this, because I think it's their job. I'm not quite sure who the zoning administrator is, but I do know that James Brown does work with that. So I'm more than happy to hear everybody's questions, and and we can go from there.
Yeah, just in clarification too, is the deed restrictions is a big part of getting that right on the zoning map. And because open space is so critical to this community, wanted to make sure that we didn't just do the open space, forest preserve and township. Open space is real clear. The deed restriction that people have put on their private property, be it farmland protection and/or some other conservation agreements. And even at Garfield Farms, there's like 3 different ways that there's deed restrictions for those covenants to make that full space. It's not just like township open space. So there's some complications and uniqueness about this community. And the other piece of it is to look at properties on our borders with Elgin and where those, to discern how far Elgin has gotten west and coming south into our area potentially. And it'll help us with that as well as on the south side of what we're gonna discuss about St. Charles later too.
Let's see.
Mike had-
Yeah, trustee Millet. and-
Thank you, Madam President. We talked about this at the zoning commission meeting last 3 weeks ago, because that's where we're at right now, is we're starting to identify and correct the maps. So there's lots of questions that came up from the dais at that point, that we need this type of legal assistance to exactly, as Kathy said, we got to dig and see, who has a covenant that they forgot to record, or who's got we think they have, one type of deed restriction, they don't, so we would want to put them in the right zoning district as the proposed map comes forward out of the zoning commission. So this was a soft request by the zoning commission, so I think it's something we should do.
Let's see, we'll go down the line. Trustee Burson was next. And then-
Former president of chair, of the Plan Commission, John Pree, had made it very clear to me a couple of years ago, in running actually, that we had quite a lot of messiness when it came to open space on the map. And it was something that was very near and dear to his heart. And as one of the people who was, deeply involved in the creation of our open space, I took his concerns seriously, from the outset. I didn't necessarily understand all of the individual parcels and this and that. And I sat down with him here at the village, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something. And we had the big maps out, and he had little tiny Post-it notes, and he had them all over the map. Because this piece of open space in this subdivision is actually open space, and it's not something else, it's open space, and, and things like that, notes all around the village. And so his knowledge and his recollections were invaluable, but they don't help us necessarily with the map, right? Right, because if we have a resident, no matter how much we love him, and no matter how, deeply he was involved in our open space creation in the past, if he says, well, this area in the middle of this subdivision is open space, and somebody says it isn't, it's important for us to know, right?
Right.
And as I understand it, that's one of the things you're going to help us understand.
Right. Identifying where it all is, the boundaries of it all, and also what is on what the ownership is, and what kind of restriction of record is on it. There's the conservation easements that the township did as a matter of course, that should still be in all this property. And there's just a number of different covenants, and subdivisions have it as well. So it'd be an interesting project just to narrow down, because there's so much out there.
That's right.
But they really, some of the spaces are so small, you may not want to,
Invest.
take that kind of, deep dive into them. But, then again, you want to catch most of it, and you want to make sure it's zoned properly, and then that, in fact, it has the correct, the correct recorded document. And that's why I'd work also with a title company that would help me bring down the title. And for the properties that you're really interested in, making sure exactly what's on it.
Has your office provided us with a scope of work or proposed budget for this work?
We did in the, it's a not to exceed $5,000 estimate
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah, it's in the contract.
Thank you very much.
Trustee Williams, and then Ed will get to.
Madam President, that was my question. I wanted to know what I was voting for, like the limit. So am I voting for up to 5,000, and is it a 5-year agreement, or? No, there's not a yearly, okay, good. So I just wanted to know what the exact amount was. Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you.
And Trustee Muncy.
Thank you, President Winnicky. I think Trustee Burson hit most of the points that I wanted to make for us and anybody listening. The reason for this is that these deed restrictions, covenants, other title issues and restrictions that make the properties eligible for and designated as legally open space, they do need to be recorded. If we don't have that, then yes, they could be contentious. However, I do have a question on that budget limit. The way I read it was, there's a rate, and then there's just a not to exceed. Was there any scope of work, as trustee Burson had asked, or any evaluation of, do you think you can get it done for 5,000, to put it frankly?
Well, it's interesting you asked that. I guess it depends on what the scope is. But I have a feeling that, you know, the title recording will be, you know, it's separate and apart. It's in addition to, you know, the title research, I should say, and the title, bringing down it's not going to be a title commitment. It's going to be a title search. But that will be in addition to the 5,000, just so you know that. But yeah, my heart's in this, and you know, it's hard to say, and I just sort of thought, you know, you guys are serious about keeping your budget in line, and I understand that, and it wouldn't, you know, I would come before the board again and have good reasons why, you know, if we needed to expand this, if the zoning commission decided they needed me to, you know, take a dive into someplace that would, you know, involve more work. But right now I can see, you know, working with all these, you know, I've got a lot of base information. I've got a lot of PIN numbers. I just got a lot of data. And now I need to hone it into what you guys want to put on your map. And, yep.
Great, thank you.
I think I can do it.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions or trustee Burson?
Just a quick one. I mean, it sounds like it's a modest amount, but I just want to make sure we're clear about it, that the title search fees, can you give us a ballpark what we're talking
They
about?
wanted to know how many properties before they'd give me an estimate. But, you know, I can tell you, I think, you know, we would have to negotiate that. I guess it's really hard for me to say until I didn't have the authority to really put myself out to the title company to say I've been hired. So it was hard to negotiate something, but I did make a.
So it does, so your experience is there's a sliding scale, and if you said, I want to do 5 searches, it's going to cost you more per search than if you said, I want to do 50 searches.
Yeah, they like the idea I'm doing more searches, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Can you give us any kind of a ballpark? You know,
That's just it. I'll make the phone call tomorrow and I can give you more of a ballpark at your next meeting.
okay.
But
And then,
the key is, what I think we're saying is that it's not to exceed 5,000 unless we
My
come
fees.
back. Yeah, her fees.
but the
And we'll,
recording is.
the recording
Additional.
additional, and we will have that at the 3rd of September. We'll have an idea.
So just to get an idea of scale, I mean, it's not like the recording is going to be twice the cost of her work.
No,
It's going to be, it's
no,
going to be a
think so.
fraction of the
a
cost of her
fraction of
work.
that 5, yes.
Right. Right, well, thank you.
I will do my best at negotiating a price.
Yeah. All right, anybody else? All right, we'll move on. Roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee McElvey?
Nay.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Kathy. By the way, Kathy did write the Campton Township Open Space Plan, and that was purely volunteer and lots of work back in the day in 2001, so. Give you credit where it's deserved. Thank you. All right, moving on to 6B, motion to approve proposal from Christopher Holland for an addition to the evidence room.
So moved, Muncy.
Moved by
Second.
Muncy, second by trustee Burson. Discussion, questions? Okay, Nick?
Just to confirm, we are on the evidence room edition? Yes? Okay. So I looked over it, and it looks like our resident has given us a really fair, you know, just from general construction, building a wall, plywood, putting in this addition. My question is, you know, the plywood and the framing and the door, you know, I mean, it's not really offering any security. It's more so offering, you know, meaning that you could cut through it, it'll burn, whatever, but it gives you the privacy. just throwing it out there, have you considered big gun vault? You know, fireproof safe down in the evidence room? And I just wanted to hear your feedback on the pros and the cons. Thanks.
So, yeah, we actually already have a gun vault down there. So the reason for this addition to the evidence room is we are 99% there. So when I say that, it has been a long, over a year now, process. It has been costly process. We meet or exceed industry standards in our evidence, so like we are there. Do I absolutely have to do this? No, not absolutely. Do I want to do this? Yes, I do. And this is why, is we have an evidence vault downstairs. It's secured. No one can get into it. So anything inside that evidence vault, no one can get to. So it's not a question of that being secure. By us building this additional room, the suggestion is any high-value items, be it firearms, narcotics, or currency that's brought in, should be kept separate from any, you have a bicycle in there, you have someone's iPad in there, should be separate for it. So it's not necessarily being built for an additional layer of security, it's being built for a layer of separation between two different classifications of evidence, like a high-value item versus standard one. So like even the door, he asked, you know, when we did this proposal on it, what kind of door do you want? He's like, I can give you a bunch of doors. So like that is actually a high security door that he put on there. So it serves the purpose for what we need in separating two different types of evidence on it. And it's actually going to also block off an opening that is current in the cage where someone could look through there and see what's there. So that was another reason for it. So overall, yes, this is exactly what we need on it, because in order, and I 100% agree, in order for someone to get into that area, you would actually first have to get into the secure door to the room. You would then actually have to get into the evidence cage and then gain access to that area. But we do have a gun vault in there. It's just because of things and how they've played out in audits and everything, we're sort of taking a suggestion from experts to what we should be doing, the finalized stuff, and that's just why we're adding that to it.
Thank you, Chief. Anything else? All right, roll call.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee McKelvey?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. 6C, motion to approve ordinance 2415, entering into a master services agreement with Lexipol for law enforcement policy manual subscription services.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Burson, second by trustee
Second.
Williams. Okay. Any more discussion, questions? Trustee Muncy?
I think trustee Burton's hand was up first.
Okay, trustee Burson?
I just want to clarify my understanding that this is something that seems like it may have fallen in the cracks in the change of administrations. It looks as though this contract was approved by, at the time, Commander Ziegler on April 4th of 2022. Right? Or is it even, it's the year before even?
I think, yeah, Chief will.
So, one part, yes, you are correct. So one part, this has already been paid for this year. The village has paid it. But this was put into place 2022. Steve Millar, former chief, and Commander Ziegler both signed off on it. For whatever reason, it was just signed off on
And not approved by us.
correct.
Yeah, it's an oversight of not coming to the board for approval. You approved it twice in the budget, this budget and the year before's budget, so it was approved, but not the actual
Well,
contract.
So we never had a resolution or an ordinance for the spend
Yes,
directly.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and just to a side note to this is like, this actually came to light because of a FOIA request. So I obviously, this was before me, so I did not know, I just assumed that this was already brought to the board a couple years ago and that is how actually it came to my attention, was a FOIA request, so.
Thank you.
All right, ready for
No, I had a
Muncy?
question.
Go.
Yeah, thank you,
Go ahead.
President Winnicke. The question is for Chief Levan. I just want to confirm that this is still both beneficial and necessary, and you don't have any alternative recommendations.
100% necessary. Our only alternative is to go back prior to Lexi Pool to our old pieces of paper that, and like, that are, you know, could be outdated 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about, and I know Mr. Forte over there could speak to this too, is like, these are vetted from lawyers that are experts in this area. Obviously, we have a question about it, it goes to our village attorneys, and they may change something, you know, to suit it better for our village. But this is 100%, it's seldom you're gonna find an agency out there nowadays,
doesn't have
unless it's extremely small, that isn't going to have Lexi Pool policies.
Yeah, they're
Thank
vetted
you.
federally and then by state. So it's pretty much nationwide. Lexipol is the standard that's used to make sure your policies like pursuit, just everything that the police department could touch or involve. And it keeps our liability better, and it trains the officers to know what right looks like.
And that is a huge part to it. So it's nice, I go in there, I adjust it how I see fit, how it's needed. I send it out to officers. It tracks everything. Unlike a piece of paper before where you say, okay, tell me you read this, signed off on it, sign here, goes in a file, gets lost in a file. This is done electronically. It gives me a timestamp. I know when they read it. I know they approved it. So if down the road we have an issue with that officer for whatever it may be, says, hey, did you read your policies and procedures? Well, yes, you did, because it's acknowledged right here. So it is a good thing liability-wise.
Okay, everybody ready to vote? Roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee McElvey?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. 6D, motion to approve ordinance 24-16, declaring 2013 Ford Taurus police vehicle surplus.
So moved, Muncy.
Moved by trustee Muncy, second by trustee
Second.
Williams. Okay, discussion, questions?
Just a
Go
request
ahead.
for
Trustee
information on
Hudson.
this, and is there any salvageable equipment such as beacon lights or anything that CERT could potentially use?
So what we did was, I got 3 estimates on this for the car. So it was obviously, it's our oldest squad in the fleet. It was, God bless him, former Deputy Chief Randy Johnson's pride and joy. Don't know why, because I hated the car. But it is, it is our oldest, decent condition considering how old it is. So I did 3 things. I got an estimate from the auto auction, what they would realistically think we'd get. They said probably approximately $1,500 right now, catch to it. I have to send that to our outfitters to remove the equipment, even though it's amber and yellow. That's another $1,000, so we actually lose money on the car. We checked with, they're called Asia Motors out of Schiller Park. They specialize in used police cars. They said that they would take the car as is from us. They'd give us $2,000 for it, as long as everything worked. And then we were reached out to from Accurate Towing, and they wanted to use it for a traffic car, which they can do with amber and white lights. So they said they would match the $2,000 we're being offered for it, and we don't have to remove this equipment that is currently on there, because none of it's police equipment, it's just emergency management. So it seemed more like a win-win. They match the price, and we don't have to touch anything on the car, and it leaves that front spot that it's putting dents in the parking lot out there.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee McElvey?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right, well, on, let's see, are you here from Safe Built? Okay, I'm going to switch the discussion items. We'll start out with B, so you can give your, we can have our discussion, then you can move on. I know it's a long
And-
meeting.
Katie was here the night the power wasn't
Yeah.
working. So,
I was, so we'll try this again. I'm going to do this real quick. I'm not going to go through the whole thing.
Okay.
So thank you for having me. Mark and I had a discussion, and village attorney as well. So just a couple key points that I just want to kind of go over. One of the issues was the fee schedule. I know that there's been talk about, introducing some impact fees. So as we spoke a couple weeks ago, we can do that in our, we're looking at obviously using our system. We can definitely manage the fee schedule that you guys currently have. We have many communities, including the references I have on here. Pingree Grove, Hampshire, and Gilbert's, where we take your fee schedule, we put it in your system, and we can really track all of your fees. So, if we don't get a percentage on that. So right now, we're proposing the 80-20 split. We can put those in there at 0% billing. So we definitely can track that, in our system. One of the other issues that did come up was the utilization for if, let's say, you do hire us and you decide to go a different route for continuing to use our software system. We do offer that for currently we have thousands of customers that utilize our system that are not a service of SafeBuilt. They do pay, so when you are a customer of ours, you do not currently pay for anything. When you leave, you have the option to use our system, but there is a fee, and as in the information I've got in here, it's $1,500 per user. So with that, if you choose to leave without our information, if you choose to leave and not use our system, you will get a data dump. So we don't hold anybody hostage with the information. We take that information and we give you a data dump. I know that some communities, they struggle once they get that information, but every single entry that is put in our system is your data. So if you get a FOIA request, you have all of that information. So ultimately, $1,500 a user, but currently, as a current customer, you have unlimited users, including yourselves, that you would get that, and it would be free of charge. SafeBuilt, like I said, SafeBuilt also works very closely with, Mark and the staff. Any permits that need to be put in the system. We do online permits. We do, people can come in here and pay. They can, certainly pay online. So it's very user-friendly. Again, the contacts that I have on here, they currently use that as they use that, so they actually use it full service. I do know that there has been some questions on Wonder Lake, and I just wanted to kind of put that out there. I know that there were a couple of people that had some questions. It's my understanding that I believe it's the administrator that lives here. That was a customer of ours, a very long-standing customer. We were actually not making money, and I'm sure you can all understand that we are all in the business to make money. So we had to raise their fees. And by doing that, unfortunately, we could not come to agreement with the fees. We had to raise them substantially. And so we did do a data dump for them. We did provide that data dump to them. And so I'm not really sure where they took that data dump, but they did get all their information. So I wanted to open it up to questions, if anybody has any questions.
Okay, Trustee Burson, go ahead.
From what I've seen on the fee schedule that you provided, I have no questions or concerns about the hourly rates. I do, so like the Wonder Lake example makes me wonder, no pun intended. So it seems to me like the issue may not be so much the hourly rate, but the number of hours that the community anticipates that a project may take. So if the community says that for a permit for XYZ thing costs $200, right? But by the time you guys spend 3 hours working on it, you've spent $250, right? and the village, and the community has possibly lost money on the permit, right? Or maybe you guys have, because maybe you were locked into the $200 fee, right? When your cost was in excess of that. I'm wondering whether, I'm kind of focused on the issue of the number of hours, and how do you get, agreement with the community that the overall budget for a task that the community has assessed, because we generally charge flat rates for these things. We say it costs $500 for this or $300 for that. How do you help us get comfortable with the idea that the flat rate that we're charging is going to work with the hourly structure that you have?
So
Because it could be that it's mostly right, but then we have a troublesome resident, or we have a troublesome contractor, and all of a sudden it costs us 2 or 3 times for that particular one at an hourly rate what we thought it did at a flat rate. So how do you help communities with that
Sure.
issue?
I can answer that. So, so I just want to clarify. There is an hourly rate in the contract. That typically falls within, if we take over the account and somebody else issued the permit, we would charge you hourly. But what is happening with this contract is it's actually going to be a percentage of fee. So the village owns the fee schedule. So ultimately, there is a charge. So I'm going to take an example for a re-roof, okay? So you charge $50 for a re-roof. So that's what we take 80%, and you guys get 20% of that, okay? We do not charge you hourly unless it's above and beyond. So if Mark calls me up and says, hey, there was a fire at the village hall and we need to have a building inspector come in, we would charge you hourly because there's not a permit attached to it. But if there's a permit attached to it, it would be an 80-20 fee split. So there would be nothing additional. So if we charge $50 for that permit and we did that inspection, we don't charge you anything additional. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm not sure that I see in the agreement where it ties to our permit fee schedule. I see the hourly schedule. Maybe our attorney can help us understand
So
better.
I just do want to mention the fee schedule. So we don't ever put the fee schedules in the contracts, just because it is, because a lot of times you guys are making changes to your fee schedule. So there is a lot of times where we don't like to put that in there. If that is something you want to be able to put into the contract, we can certainly talk about that.
Typically, you won't see it in the agreement itself. It'll refer to whatever the village's current fee schedule is or will be as amended, which is what the agreement says now. The one thing you need to consider within the last 4 months or so, in the past 4 months or so ago, you increased the new construction permit fee for residential and commercial fairly significantly. As it stands now, Safeboat would get 80% of that fee, of that permit cost. So if the village, the intent of increasing that cost was to cover a lot more of the village's costs for those additional inspections that were involved in a new construction project. So if you wanted to maintain, some of that revenue and not be overpaying, let's say, for services, you would have to change that permit fee by board action prior to entering into this agreement. And we can do that. You can also increase something, for instance, like the driveway access permit fee, which would be attached to new construction, but wouldn't be part of the permit fee that would be shared with Safeboat. So when there was a discussion about impact fees, that I think that's essentially what was indicated. Outside fees that are not related to the permit itself, but maybe could be related to the project, are not shared on an 80-20 basis.
And I think, Katie, if you touch on the cost of living fee increase for your rate and clarify that.
Yeah, so, obviously, each municipality, you guys are in it for the business too, that, the building department, obviously, you want to at least break even, right? we have shared with Mark a spreadsheet of, or surrounding areas of where people are at versus, so what you guys charge versus what another municipality charges. So we have shared that with Carmen and Mark, that, and not necessarily do you have to have, we can still have an agreement with you, and if you decide 6 months down the road where you want to add additional fees to it, you certainly can do that. But what we're trying to do is trying to make sure that you guys are in line with a lot of communities around you, because obviously you don't want to be the highest, but you don't want to be the lowest. That's where SafeBuilt can come in and kind of recommend, you know, certainly certain fees if you're looking to increase them.
One last question then, Trustee Burson.
Just a simple
Yeah.
comment. I have no
Okay.
problem with being the lowest. You know, we're not trying to make money off of our residents, from my perspective. I just want to make sure that I understand the proposition that's in front of us, so thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Just to build on the prior statement I made too, so the way it currently stands, any outside fee that the village pays to a third-party company, you pay your initial permit fee, which is a deposit, and then you pay to the village 150% of what the outside fees and the permit fee is in total. So the village always covers its costs. Now that it's paying to outside, right, on any project, the village covers its costs that for utilizing these outside services. It would still cover its costs under an agreement with SafeBuilt. The question is whether or not SafeBuilt would cover its costs, but that's up to SafeBuilt.
And I just want to also mention, you know, SafeBuilt also does a lot of community development. I think I talked about this at the first meeting. So if there's something out in the community that we can help support too, SafeBuilt is all about, you know, really recognizing the community and trying to give back to the community. And, you know, the other thing I do want to mention, if we were to get this account, we do have the same inspectors coming in here. You wouldn't see different inspectors each time. We have really good rapport with all of our accounts where we have the same individuals coming. Obviously, they take vacation, but, you know, that's with, but for the majority of it, we have the same inspectors.
And we'd be getting the ones that primarily work in the Hampshire, Pingree Grove, Gilbert's. That's the closest.
Yeah, and all of my inspectors have at least 10-plus years. I have a plan review team that also strictly does plan review. Obviously, we want to make sure that when, you know, your residents and contractors are doing the projects, they're safe, and, you know, we're all out there for the safety of the residents and the contractors.
And Katie, if you could clarify zoning review. You can have us do it internally and then tell you go on the permit, or you can give us the fee and do the zoning review of our zoning code once, the current and a future one.
Yeah, so we do zoning. Again, every community is a little bit different. So like Mark said, we have people on staff that learn your zoning code. We would be able to do it. Obviously, there would be a small fraction of a cost. But if they decide, or if the village decides that they don't want to pay SafeBuilt, what would happen is they would approve it, and then they would let us know, and then we would go and process the permit and obviously do the inspections.
Okay, Trustee Muncy, go ahead.
Thank you, President Winnicke, and thank you for coming out again.
Sure.
To present this information and hear our questions. I still have a remaining question about, on page 4, starting on page 4, goes into page 5 of the agreement on the ownership of documents. You spoke about the data dump, which is a CSV file that the customer gets, and that's their own data. They own that at that point upon a termination, but unless they have the technical competency to figure out how to open up that CSV file in a manner which they can interpret, they would need your software to be able to make it look exactly the same and use it the same as it was before. You said earlier that at post-termination, there is an option for, if I heard this correctly, $1,500 per year for one user to continue to use the SafeBuilt software. I don't see that in the agreement. Is it in here?
It may not be. What we can do is we can add that into the agreement. So we can put a verbiage in there that basically would state that if you were to terminate, and it's a one-pager, so we certainly can do that. You know, obviously, you know, it would just depend on how many users you would need.
I'd prefer something in the agreement to that effect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then trustee Williams, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Katie, I was just going to ask, I wasn't here for the first time you presented. I wasn't available for that, but I wasn't on the board, actually. But the question I have, maybe you got already answered it, but so these other villages that go on your system, is it best if they do it in the beginning of the year, mid-year? What happens to the ones that are kind of in course? Let's say there's a house being built and the guy's halfway through the old system, and then you guys come along. How does that work?
Great question. So we actually do that all the time. So to answer your question, you really don't have to start at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
A lot of times, when the municipality comes on, they might have identified like a permit number, and it might be different from what we start. We can take the inspections, and that's what's nice about our system. We can plug any inspections in at any point. We know that anything, so if a new home is being done and we're at the foundation, now we're gonna, you know, or they did the footing, now we're gonna do the foundation. We can forget the footing inspection and we can add the foundation. And we do this all day long. So we have a lot of accounts where we just do inspections and we're able to track that. They may have like a plumbing inspector and we only do the building. We do that currently now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any more discussion or questions? All right, thank you, Katie.
Sure.
Thank you for coming back.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're moving on to 7A, HR Green Engineering Updates, Kane Kendall Council of Mayors, grant-funded roadway projects, which is put them together, and Geneva Construction Update.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go through the KCOM projects, which are mainly 2025 construction and one 2029, and then I'll cover what happened this past year on the roadway project. So you currently have 5 separate roadways that have grant funding through KCOM. 2 are dedicated, and the other 3 are scheduled to be moved from contingency to fully funded in October. And there's going to be a couple questions in here because I work with Mr. Millette on that KCOM committee that I'll bounce back and forth with him for addition or clarification. I'm going to focus, of the 5, I'm going to focus on the 4 that are scheduled for 2025 construction, which is, as listed in here, the western section of Campton Hills Road, Town Hall Road, Brown Road, and Danker Road. You've previously approved design contracts for all 4 of those roadways. All of those are in process. We are coordinating with KCOM. We are coordinating with IDOT. What we have worked out is the type of road work on all 4 of these is the same type of road work, which is pavement milling, full depth reclamation because of the condition of the roadways, which cement stabilization, and then repaving, binder surface, aggregate shoulders. It does not make sense to do 4 separate projects of similar type work scattered around the community. So we have worked with the agencies to be able to consolidate these into one project to be constructed in 2025. The combined cost of all of those is currently estimated at about $3.5 million. So it's going to be the largest road project Campton Hills has ever performed. Of that, about $2.7 million is grant funding. So a couple of reasons for this presentation is to give you an update on the current status of where things are at. We're all moving towards a early 2025 bid letting. The bid letting, because of federal funding, would be administered through IDOT. They will open the bids, and then it comes to the village for concurrence with the award after that. The included in here, because some of these roadways are joint jurisdiction, there's a portion that's village, there's a portion that's highway district, et cetera, piecemeal on different roadways. Both agencies are involved in the project, and we have summarized the information in here for advanced budgeting purpose. I know it's only August, But with the size dollars that are involved here, the more notice you have about funding that the village will have to dedicate for next year, the better to help your process. So those figures have been provided to the village and have also been provided to the highway district. This isn't the first time you've seen some of these numbers, probably the first time you've seen them all combined together in one report like this. But it's because all the projects are coming together for one construction project that we wanted to provide you this summary of this. I intentionally talked about 4 of the projects, not the 5th project I'll just touch on briefly, which is Campton Hills Road east of Town Hall Road, from Town Hall to the Fox, because that's actually scheduled for funding later. Currently it's scheduled for 2029 construction funding at the present time. So I wanted to provide a summary of this information, answer any questions you may have about the process and such, and just keep you informed.
And Scott, just for budgeting purposes, it's roughly $1 million that we need, folks, to encumber. But in the way IDOT invoices, there's an upside. They don't bill real quickly. So we will need to.
We just paid vocal, right?
No, well, yeah, that's true. That's actually true. But we'll budget the full amount that it's gonna cost us in next May 1st's expenditure, but we will not write checks out of the warrant list to IDOT of that amount, probably until 2026, the balance, so.
Correct. Typically what happens, so when you do that, when you budget for it, you're encumbering that total amount that you will owe for the project. Typically in the year of construction, IDOT will invoice you for 80% of the local agency cost. Not always exactly 80, but that's typically what they do. Then, as they go through the final paperwork process, which can take anywhere from 1 year to 3, 4 years type of thing, which is why you'll see in here costs for 2024, which is your current design engineering, 2025, which is the bulk of the 80% of the construction and construction engineering, and then it jumps for these projects to 2027. That's our educated guess as to when you will receive the final invoice from IDOT for those projects as they're closed out.
But Tim and I will encumber the full amount in next year's budget, and just know that we'll only probably 75, 80% of it paid out, and then a couple years later. And I think you mentioned a road, Tim, that's taken 2 years to get a final bill on, 3 years almost.
The,
Go ahead, yeah.
So I'm describing it as a feeding frenzy at this point, because other towns are doing what we're doing. So I still think we're in a pretty good shape. Aurora, being Aurora, is way ahead, because they got full-time staff that they dedicate to this kind of stuff, and they already get they're Aurora, they have a lot of roads. But I think we're definitely kind of like in a better spot than, like, say, Montgomery or Sandwich, a couple other places that didn't have the foresight to, put the engineering money out now as it comes available. So we will have from the KCOM staff, we'll have an update. I will probably see that the beginning of October. So I'll know exactly what it looks like, and then it'll be adopted by the Transportation Committee, which is my committee, and then it gets adopted by the full KCOM committee, and then it's set in stone, and then we are hopefully going forward with all 4 of these projects in January.
Okay, Trustee Burson, go ahead.
We had questions as a board about spending the money on the engineering months ago. And I honestly not sure that we all understood. We were trying to understand, but I'm not sure that we all understood the way that Trustee Millett understands, from his role in this committee, what we are committing to. But it seems to me like what we can see now is that not only have we seen a return on our investment for this engineering, but we're seeing it sooner than we thought. Because as I understood it, the issue was that if we committed to doing this pre-engineering in advance, our projects were deemed more shovel-ready, and were more likely to get approved, which is what happened. And so, if we had been, more conservative, trying to watch our cash, 6 months ago, we would not have the opportunity with some of these roads, right?
That's correct. If you had not had the will to take that step, I'd be here talking about one of these projects, only one of the roadways. But because of that, you've improved your positioning on the other three as well.
Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Muncy, go ahead.
Thank you, President Winnicki. Just to clarify, when there's statements made about the board as a whole, they're not necessarily true. The board as a whole, several of us have supported this for years. I understand some people had questions. The board as a whole did not have questions. And we appreciate the work you've done on this for years, because it's taken that long to get here. But it is something that is definitely valuable. And thank you for the recommendation you made a long time ago that we go down this road and kept this on it. So this is great. Thank you. This is great news.
That's a great comment. Okay, Trustee Williams.
What does this do, and I probably don't know the number, but is this going to make a huge dent? You know how we have that percentage of roads that are bad in the village? I think you guys talked about that.
Correct.
Pie chart.
Does this make a huge dent in that percentage, or does it really catch us up a lot, or is it a lot of miles of road? I'm not sure how many miles this total is.
It actually gets you, these four roadways cover about 5 miles of roadways. You have close to 100 miles of roads in the village. Goal would be to complete road projects on a 20-year cycle. So your goal should be to get to about 5 miles per year. So this does do that. I would add, though, that these are some of the more intensive and more expensive roadways that you have in the village. So I'd say next year, 2025, you are getting a little bit ahead of that goal. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop pushing for future years, because you still have considerable other needs, but next year we'll make a good-sized dent.
It's really good news. Yeah. Anybody else?
Thanks for all your help, Mike, at that, chairing that committee.
Yeah.
Whatever, however your thumb gets on that scale.
I do not show partiality.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion or questions? If you've got more, Scott, or?
That covers the KCOM projects, the
Okay.
summary of 2025. I do want to provide an update on the 2024 road project that has been completed. Contractor missed by a couple of days getting all the paperwork into us to be able to approve final change orders and pay estimates, but we do have that, so that we will be bringing that to the board at the first meeting in September to close out those road projects. And it's both the originally approved project and then the addition of 2 streets, Nancy and Gary, that the village board had approved. We'll be closing both of those out for just slightly under what the original $816,000 contract was. So we do have agreed prices and quantities from the contractor. Things went along went along quickly. I think you saw the contractor got in, got done, and got completed. So next meeting, we'll close out those 2 projects.
Yeah, and to address the trustees and to kind of cover for Tim, I did tell him to have money available at this warrant for the $600,000 that I thought we would be approving tonight to pay Geneva for the Summers project. And I didn't realize they'd be a couple days shy of getting it to us in time. So that's another reason he had some of that money set in that account. Because 2 weeks ago, I told him we'd be spending it probably tonight. And I didn't foresee this snag, but it'll be spent actually on the September 3rd. But the work is 100% completed, and they've done most of the restoration already, too, so.
Correct. All restoration is completed, all punch list work has been completed. So this would actually be the final payment without a retainage being held, closing out that project.
In most other municipalities I've worked in, because you've approved the contract, when I was satisfied staff-wise and legally that they've finished it, I wouldn't bring it to another council meeting to approve it as a warrant because the contract's already been approved. I would just write the check tomorrow after this report, but you're not seeing the documentation for a warrant list because of that slight delay. So we do take these extra steps here on all your expenditures. It's just it's the nature of how you do business here.
Well, and with that, because there are contract changes, a little more of this item, a little less of that item, there's first a step to approve a change order for each project, to authorize those changes in contract quantities, and then the next step would be approving the final pay estimate for each of those contracts. And again, they're some of the largest contracts that you will pay throughout the year, so that extra step gives all the clean paperwork through IDOT, for all your MFT accounting and such. So.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Scott.
Okay,
It's good
thank you.
news. All right, moving on, we'll move on to 7C, Zoning Commission update. I think that be Mike? or-
Thank you, Madam President. So tomorrow night, we are continuing our look at the maps, and we are finalizing language for parking.
Yay.
Yeah. So the maps are going to probably be a little bit more of a slog than we'd hoped, but I think we are still on course to have something deliverable reported up here by October.
Nice. good.
Hopefully the first meeting in October, but I'm just going to say October for right now to be safe.
Yeah, so if we get through the maps, this meeting and the first, we'll go back to 2 meetings a month. And so then we'll take a second meeting to do the maps again and to cover signage. And then there will be in that, hopefully, the second meeting in September, where I would encourage everyone on the village board to attend, because they'll be doing their unified summary review of the entire document in preparation to set a public hearing for the zoning commission to welcome the public to review the finished document before it is brought to the village board. So that'd be very helpful for everyone at the dais to see that summary and then the public hearing, so that we wouldn't have to go over every page of every dot and every I and T. You'd be looking at the policy changes in the big picture and not doing the granular work that the zoning commission has done. So, if that's helpful to everyone. Yes, as observers, obviously, that's unspoken, but yes, I don't want you to prejudge and make commentary on their work at the public hearing or the review. But it'll just help you, and it'll help me a lot, so I don't have to say it, repeat it.
All right, any other comments, questions? Okay, good, we'll move on. 7D, Village Hall Generator Option. Who's going to speak on that?
And here we've got the $48,800 left in American Recovery dollars. We did have the cost at 122 and then 126, 130 for the power of the whole building. And one of the highest one also had a Mitsubishi split unit that would provide heat and air that is not currently available in the basement for both the server and the workout locker room. So that was the highest end, and there was some question whether, let's look at an option that just does the telecommunication and the server And can we do that? And so I tried to get creative with Alex and the building to get BNF Technical to tell me that we could put it over the holding cell area, that the roof could support it, and our gas line complication with the larger generator with the pad would be out of the picture. So we're still looking at $70-some thousand for a smaller option, it looks like. So I just need, how do you want that information to be presented? Do you want all the kind of half the building, and not even a true half, to compete against the entire, or do you want it, you know, which way do we want to present all these? Because I'd have to get the quotes for the whole building recertified, because they came to us, you know, last winter, and between November and January. I'd have to make sure that those numbers are still going to be valid and they could perform that work, because then I was kind of directed to do a smaller scale one. And then there's been some discussion, is that really adequate, because we wouldn't have a heating and cooling center in this room for the public if we did have an emergency.
Okay, Trustee Millet, we'll start with you.
I said before, I think we're already in for 70 or 80 to get part. I don't think there's a big leap to go to 130 or 150 to do the whole building. So I think you're already doing a lot of the prep work for it. And we talked about transfer switches and a bunch of other stuff. You know, when we looked last discussion, you're going to be in the wiring, you're going to be in everything. I think it's better just to bite the bullet and basically have a generator for the whole building.
I'll second that, Mike. We've got Trustee Boatner was first, and then Muncy, and then, I'm sorry.
Mark, and I thought that you had copies of the updated quotes from JRC, because that was the only quote I ever saw sent out to me. And I reached out to them just to get more clarification on this quote. And it had 4 transfer switches, and the quote was what the quote was. And from talking to him, I was able just to have him, and you have these as well, these quotes, but just to kind of go through a couple other options and explain them. So there's 4 panels in the building. These 2 right here cover our rooftop units, the outlets, and the lighting in the building. If we skip the 2 panels that are down in the basement and we just focus on those 2, there's 2 different kinds of generators we can use, a standby generator or an emergency generator. Big difference. So the standby generator, the idea is that it has to engage within a minute. An emergency generator within 10 seconds. So an emergency generator would be, you know, appropriate for a hospital, a police department, a tornado siren. But putting it just on these 2 panels, if we did the standby unit, you know, he came in at a quote of $25,800 and had him make sure that the evidence room refrigerator would be on that in case that was on one of the basement panels. And then doing an emergency generator came in at $49,161. So, you know,
That's just the generator, that's not all the electrical.
that's done installed.
Yeah.
No, no,
That's
no.
not installed.
No, that is installed.
I thought-
No, that's
they
done,
had
that's
extra on
installed.
that still.
The only thing that's not included in here are the permitting fees.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's completely installed.
And that's like a 10K that you could.
The emergency generator is the smallest size they make an emergency, 35 kilowatts. We really only need a 25 kilowatt, but we, you know, to go to an emergency, you have to step it up to 35. So in the standby, it's a 20 kilowatt generator, which is adequate. They look at our electric bills, they look at the load that we use over several months, and they rate it at 120%, and that's how they size the generator. So those are installed, and because they're smaller now, they can put them on rubber curbs up in the roof. We've got high-pressure gas lines, we've already got enough gas. They just put a regulator on, and they can install it
And
up top.
that saves a great deal of money by putting it on the roof. I had to check, I got creative on that to try to save us some money.
Yeah.
And that's a generator that's not much bigger than you see a Generac or Home Depot or Costco up on the roof, you know, it's that type of size.
Yeah, and also, it's nothing to do with the first three estimates. There was nothing done wrong at all with those. It's just, this is something that, you know, I'm pretty familiar with and was able to kind of hone in on. Another option for us to look at.
To get to just the bare, I'm sorry, Tracy, I didn't have my mic on. That gets us the bare bone
Lights, outlets, heating and cooling.
and the server.
Yes, I mean, we'll have to verify the server
Yes.
and those outlets. Yeah, we'll have to make sure, yep.
So we would have enough American Rescue dollars to achieve, if we went that level, the whole building is gonna be, you know, almost 90,000 more than that. So that's kind of where, I think we're talking the options, yep.
Okay, Trustee Muncy?
Thank you, President Winnicke. First of all, thank you, Trustee Boatner, for researching this, but it sounds like a great option. I just want to make sure I understand it. I guess I have two questions then. The first one is, for about $75,000 is what you're saying, you would be able to power the lights, the police, you know, the essential functions of the entire building?
Not the portion of the building that's rented out, but our office space. So these two panels right here.
Okay, so this meeting room or assembly area for emergency services, other areas where we could house residents if necessary, they have lights, they have heat, they have power.
I'm not sure on that, though, that it would power the HVAC.
Basement.
I checked before the meeting, the rooftop units are in this panel.
Are you sure?
It's
'Cause
labeled
that-
rooftop units. Yeah, I mean, I didn't do any testing
'Cause-
or anything.
Yeah,
but,
because
you
that
know.
was one of the issues that I've got with that quote, to be darn sure that it's got enough power to
Okay.
do the
And that's why I
air
asked.
conditioning and the heat.
That's why I asked. It sounds like not everybody's on the same page, so let's
Yeah.
work
Yep.
on that if you can. Again, thank you, Trustee Boatner. This is a great option. But the other one is maybe it's not a question, it's more a statement, I don't know. I believe that providing enough, you know, enough space for an emergency services facility to house residents if necessary, to have this be a facility people can come to is necessary. Police and tornado sirens are obviously essential, they have to happen. Server has to continue for their operations as well, but this is a government building where we should be offering shelter to those that need it in times of an emergency, so we should be able to do that. And it sounds like with maybe these options or the other options you're looking at, that's gonna be possible. I would be all for, we'll say the whole building or a version of that's maybe more economical.
And Trustee McKelvey, I think you
Yeah,
wanted
I
to
was just
ask.
going to respond to your initial question, which was, I'd like to see both. I'd like to see door number one, kind of all the way to Bright, and then I'd like to see an option like this, so we have something to look at and chew on too, and then make a decision based on that.
Good. And Trustee Burson?
I also agree that we should be pursuing, as best we can, a whole building solution. I very much appreciate the work that Trustee Boatner has done to try and show us ways that we can minimize what is otherwise a really significant expense here. And I specifically appreciate tonight the distinction between the standby and emergency generator categories. However, I agree with Trustee Muncy and Trustee Millette that this is our only facility that we have as a village, right? And so whether it is everything that it can be, even with the world's best generator in an emergency, who knows? But it's what we have, right? And so if we're going to try and run emergency management of whatever form or fashion, from here, I think we need to be fully able to do that and not be worried about, well, if we're over here, it's okay, but if we're in that office, there isn't any power or something that, can you do it? Yeah. Should you for the differential? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I would be in favor of doing whatever we can to cover as much of the whole building as possible.
Trustee Williams?
Since you asked, I feel the same way that I was saying. If we could have like good, better, best scenario, as long as I know what the whole plan is. But I feel like what you made about the evidence room, you're like 99% there. I feel like that's kind of where the village is with this. We're so close to having everything. And this last weather cycle we went through, which, hey, maybe it doesn't come back, but that was a scary little run we had with tornadoes. And I heard the siren go off, and I actually heard it stop. I was on my back dock, because I go outside when a tornado comes. I don't know about you guys. That's my first place I go. But it stopped, and I go, oh, it must be over. But you said the power went out. So that to me is a big concern.
Yeah.
And I don't really, I mean, there is a point, you know, if we're talking 30, 40 grand difference, that siren going off matters. Having a place for people to stay matters. I think it's money well spent, but I'd like to see, like I said, with
agree.
your plans, see what we can get away with. Thanks.
And how about this? I will work with trustee Boatner, so you'll have all the options, and you can then choose at, either the September 3rd or the September 17th. Because it's going to take me a minute to get the November, December, January guys to commit what their number is today, because it's 9 months later.
Sounds good.
And it's a lot of it is, as Nick has said, as trustee Boatner said, the switchgear and that complication. And if you have it on the ground, you have a pad, the run of that gas line's a lot more money. It's apple to a red meat. They're not even in the fruit department, the difference between the two. That's why the cost is so different.
Trustee Boatner, one last comment. Yep.
So one thing that I was thinking about while I was thinking about these generators were, grants and different ways that we could fund this outside of, just spending the money on it. In Lexipol, actually, I was researching Lexipol and reading about them, and they have a grant writing service. You probably know of lots of different grant writing services, but I don't. So Lexipol was one that we're already associated with. Then I started researching grants for municipalities, specifically like police departments, and I found a list of 10 potential candidates. I could have kept going. It didn't take me long to find them. I know that grants take time, but I don't have a ton of information on, how much would it cost us to apply for some grants? What would we have to put out? How long might they take? It's been, 17 years since we had a generator. Can we wait another 6 months? So I sent that over today. I know you didn't have time to look at it.
No,
probably before the
I think
meeting,
it's
but-
something that Chief Levan and I have spoken to Dan Hatt about, the FEMA department and what our normal go-to Justice Department type stuff. There are some options that we are, prior to you sending that, looking into as well.
Yeah, I mean, and there's probably so many other things,
Yes.
I mean, I've heard about us doing the grants for the road work, but.
No, that's something that we do spend time.
So
Chief.
do you feel like that would then be a part of future discussion when we're talking
We
about these
can
generators?
We can look and see if generators and the equipment that goes with it are covered on any kind of FEMA Justice Department type grant. We haven't ruled that out or in yet.
So here, actually, trustee Burson has brought this up previously, and I'm sure in this village, there's some extremely smart people in this village that would volunteer their time in that. If you were gonna ask me, could I sit down and apply for grants? Absolutely not. I've done it before. I know the time that goes into it. To a person that has the time, the ability, the knowledge that goes into it, other municipalities do it all day. St. Charles, a perfect example. They get so much grant money for their police department because they have a person that once a week, twice a week comes in, and they apply for every single grant there is out there in hopes they get half of those grants. So the money is endless out there in the grants. If there was a person, I don't have the ability or the experience or the time at that to sit and write grants. Luckily, Dan Hatt got the one for our technology, but there is grants for everything out there if there was the person that wanted to take the time and offer their knowledge and fill out the paperwork. It's straightforward and simple. It's just a time-consuming process, especially when you start getting into like the documentation that they ask for on a lot of the grants. But they're out there. There's an enormous amount of grants.
And the time frame that they're looking for your application, there's set deadlines, and for this type of grant, we'd have to look a little closer and we'll talk to some other agencies that are bigger that might be able to let us glomp onto their research that they've already done.
All right. All right, time to move on. Good. All right, now we have 7E, intersection of McDonald Road and Illinois Route 47, Public Safety. We have Deputy Chief Chris Howell here from Pingree Grove Fire Department. We have Ray here, and I think it's Mike from KDOT, right? Okay.
And Scott has looked at some parts of this, the Public Works Committee's talked about it.
okay.
James is gonna do a quick overview of that intersection and Connor Road as well, and some recommendations we'd make. I think that some of the recommendations, I think we should recognize the fire department's got an objection to one or two of them, but James, if you would just give us the overview.
Okay, I feel like I've already used up all my talking for this evening, so I don't want to make this as a presentation or anything. I mean, most everyone here is familiar with the intersection of Route 47 and McDonald Road. Is it a dangerous intersection? Absolutely, it's a dangerous intersection for many reasons. You know, like in law enforcement, like we look at everything when it comes to like traffic crashes, from, you know, enforcement efforts from the police department, education, engineering designs. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. There's a reason there's so many people in this room that have knowledge, experience, or opinions on this matter, and I think everyone's is important. But I also recognize that ideally, I think a solution or a discussion point is McDonald Road from Route 47 to Burlington Road. So I'm going to tell you 5 years of traffic crash data I have pulled up on this. This was part of my staff and command study that I had to do when I was at Northwestern. And 96% of every accident in the last 5 years that has happened at that intersection has been for one, I'll say two reasons, but they tie together. The vehicle is traveling westbound on McDonald Road. It comes to the stop sign at 47, does one of two things. Disregards the stop sign and goes across 47, which is traffic. Obviously, north and south on 47 have the right-of-way. Speed limit's 55. They're probably traveling 70 miles an hour. Or, like our last crash, where a car drove underneath a loaded tractor trailer, the lady came to the stop sign, she stopped, and she decided to turn out in front of a tractor trailer that was 3/4 of the way through the intersection underneath the axles of the tandem. I spoke to her. We spoke to her after the accident. She said, I stopped. Don't know what I was thinking. The only thing I think I was thinking is that Route 47 also had a stop sign, and I had a right-of-way to go. So think of the improvements, and I know Ray's sitting over here because they've been a part in this with us. In just the last year, year and a half, we've added additional stop signs up. So we actually have two-sided stop signs on each side of McDonald Road. So there's actually 4 stop signs there if you look at it. We've added a flashing light that's been put up there. There's a sign under the stop sign that says cross traffic, does not stop. So we have taken measures to try to improve it. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked exactly as planned. But a lot of this is human error on it, or it's negligent. We've had people tell us, oh, I'm sorry, I was on my cell phone and I didn't realize a stop sign was there and I shot across the intersection. Do I personally believe alleviating the traffic or removing it from McDonald Road from Burlington to 47 would provide some relief? I do. I know there's conversations, and I know the chief's gonna stand up too, and obviously other people are involved in this. We do have houses on that little stretch of McDonald Road, but I just wanna give you one example. So we don't have a lot of houses there, but this came to me this past week. I'm gonna just leave the name out of it for right now. But I get an email sent to me this past week, and the gentleman's lived there for extremely long time. And he says, we're tired of it. The traffic flow on McDonald Road has increased greatly, which it has. And commercial traffic has increased greatly. And if you watch the traffic, I'll tell you, because I watch it every day, most of the time, it's traffic going to Stony Pond subdivision on McDonald Road, going back and forth, that's using that traffic. He said, we've lived here so long, he says the accidents have become ridiculous here. Someone needs to do something, that there needs to be better enforcement. Why not an option to eliminate the traffic here, doing something with it? And I do think that's a viable option. If you had a cul-de-sac, I can say here, you know, Mr. Millette, Trustee Millette, he's way smarter than I am on this. You know, Gilbert's did something similar with Galligan Road many, many years ago where it intersects with Tyrell. Galligan used to run north and south. They put signage up, they closed it off at one end, and then they put up massive trees. The reason they chose trees, it would still work as a buffer, but someone wasn't hitting a concrete barricade or something if they did go through it. So there's lots of options out there. So I think that's one big one. Can we increase signage out there? Rumble strips, you know, do we, like Ray said, he's gonna check into it for me. Like, it's not super expensive. Does it help us if we throw rumble strips down on McDonald Road for westbound traffic? If we add an additional sign that says cross traffic doesn't stop? I mean, there's options out there for us. So I'm just throwing all these out there for a discussion point right now. Education isn't helping us. We educate people all the time. We're in the news about it. People see, you know, woman tragically killed in a car accident with a semi. So it's out there. People know it's a bad intersection to the point that our residents intentionally drive around it so they don't have to go through it. I don't want to increase times, obviously, for fire departments, make it more difficult. That's why I want this as a discussion point. But I also don't want to be standing in 47 in McDonald Road for 3 and 4 hours, even if it's only 10 or 11 times a year, why someone's being cut out of a car. So like, I want to come to a balance that sort of makes work with everyone and their opinions. I know engineering-wise, there's thought processes on this too, of some things that can be done. And then real fast, one more piece I want to add to this, for of you that are familiar with Connors Road, which is just north of there. Mr. Swanson owns 2 houses on there. He's actually the only 2 houses that go from Kendall to 47. If you're on Connors Road trying to get on 47, it's a suicide mission because northbound 47 is coming over a hill at 70 miles an hour. Especially some of these people are trying to pull out with horse trailers on the 47. It is insane. The road is destroyed. I mean, I don't know how many times you guys have gone out there and had to patch it, fill it, whatever you do out there to the road. It's gone. It's beyond gone. So why do we not close that road off at 47 and then allow from like where Mr. Swanson's properties are, so he still has access in and out to Kendall Road, him to have access. He's the only one that has property there. I think there's options for us as a village to look at with discussions from others to try to come up with some solutions, but we definitely need to come up with some solutions.
And Larry Trainer, who is Plato Township, and he's their everything at.
We'll call him Sam. Right.
Yeah, so he is on board with closing Connor at 47 and just having it local traffic beyond Mr. Swanson's house that we would probably pave up to his driveway, and the piece after it would be turned to, it's almost gravel now, because it's really, he said it was a road that was 2 inches of asphalt put on top of gravel. It wasn't ever engineered to be a road, that's why it's in such bad shape. And he's not prioritizing having that done. So he supports closing it at Connor, and we'd have to hear from the fire on that. And we're also recommending that we close at 47 on the westbound leg of McDonald, because we could close that first, I don't know if it's 70 meters, 80 meters before you get to the access road into the IDOT tower, but that other piece down, they could be easily go down to Burlington Road and then go through the traffic circle to for public safety and other purposes. And it would cut down a lot of that McDonald runway that has developed over the years as a east-west route for a lot of construction traffic and commercial. So that's what we'd come to, but I think it wouldn't be fair if we didn't hear from the fire department on that issue.
Would you like, yeah,
The last three actions we've had out there?
He needs to be by the mic.
yeah.
Can you go up to the mic, though?
It'll be recorded then.
Is this on? Okay.
Yeah.
First off, the last three accidents we've had out there, the one with the semi-trailer and the two since then, were not anybody going straight through. People go straight through, we have accidents like that. They were turning onto 47 from westbound McDonald, going westbound, east of 47, making turns into the intersection. Secondly, you're going to increase by cutting that off there, increase our response time to 7 different address properties, 80 different acres of property that we cover over there. Plus, we go into Burlington in that area to do auto aid, which we're generally the first one in to do that. You're going to do longer response times, longer distances. And the best way for us to get there then is to go down Plato Road, through the roundabout, past the high school and the grammar schools over there, which is going to increase problems with safety. If you've ever saw the traffic over there when schools letting out or getting in, plus all the kids over there with us going by lights and siren. Same thing, one way and one out inhibits us when we're doing tender operations, which we do over there for rural water supply. You need to have kind of a flow where you're not backing vehicles in, wasting time. You need to have like a roundabout way to circle in and out. Takes much longer when you're backing a 3,000-gallon tender down a long road to hit dump water so we can pump it at a fire, instead of pulling in, stopping, dumping the water, driving out and circling around to get the nearest water source. Also in that area, we cover, just in the Pingree District, 11 different buildings. Not talking about smaller buildings, there's larger buildings, houses and barns and stuff in that area too that we would go to. Now, obviously, I stood out there and was in command of that one with the lady underneath the truck and the first one on the scene. We need to do something about it. Our suggestion, and this board was not here last time I spoke about this, is a roundabout out there. Now, last time I talked about that, the board told me you can't have 3 roundabouts in a row, which would be Plato, McDonald, and Burlington, which is not true. I've also heard, and it's not up to us to talk to, we don't talk to IDOT about stuff like that. Police chief and I have already talked about it. There are other ways, because it looks like they're going to dig in their heels, IDOT, about not putting a roundabout in there. But there's grants and stuff out there. In fact, if anybody's familiar with Route 20 in the village of Pingree Grove, we have that hard turn. It was going to be put in this year. There's a grant for it, and it's going to be it's like a 2-lane all the way around because of the turnoffs. But they're going to be doing that breaking ground on that next summer because they're getting more grant money for it. So that's something to look into too. If you put the cul-de-sac in, you're still going to have cars turning left or right off of McDonald Road onto 47, and we're still going to have accidents out there. And you're going to impede us with the distance and for public safety. Of those addressed areas out there, 5 are residential that we cover. And also, like I said, we also go out to Burlington. Burlington Fire is, us in Hampshire basically cover a lot. They have one ambulance in service, but we run out there with our ambulance, we run out there with our fire engines to assist them all the time. They don't get their fire engines out during the day, where we go and assist them, which is something that's called auto aid. So it would impede us getting to that south end of Burlington too, going that way.
Sure, go ahead.
If instead of a cul-de-sac, I know you know the area pretty well, if we were to say that McDonald from Burlington to 47 going east was local traffic only, so we make it, one way from Burlington going east, and if we were to not put a cul-de-sac, but just signage and other modest obstacles that would deter ordinary vehicle traffic and still provide a path for emergency responders so that you can drive straight across even though the sign says do not enter because, except for authority vehicles, right?
Yes.
Would that alleviate the
That would
concern?
suffice in one part, but as the police chief said, people don't pay attention to signage. People
No, they
drive-
don't.
People
Not-
drive
not
with
enough.
their heads up in the clouds.
So, I mean, we've
And
also
that
contemplated.
might eliminate the going straight across, but it won't eliminate the left
Correct,
and right turns.
and the left turns going both directions are horrifying, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
you're coming from the east or the west, the left turns are terrifying. So if we were to put sort of pie slices that were low profile, that you could still drive over, obviously some people will still try and drive over those, motorists will, but some won't.
You know, another suggestion, thinking while we're talking here, is there's like gated communities where they actually have walls, gates, fences. I'm not saying put a gate up, but, you know, it's like blocked off, and they'll have grass growing there, and they'll have bricks that you can't see, that we can get up and over too, that we could go through. That's another, as you're talking about that, that's another suggestion. To block it off, but maybe have something like that where we could get up and still get through.
Great, thank you.
Sure, go ahead, trustee Williams.
The traffic circle thing, where's that come from? Because I was just visiting my kids in
The
Indiana.
roundabout?
Yeah, the roundabout thing, because I was just in Indiana, my kids live down there. There's traffic circles everywhere. They don't
Wisconsin,
do-
they're all over the place
Yeah,
too.
they don't use lights
Yeah.
anymore. I mean, they're like you'll go from a two-way lane one, right to another one, right to another one, right to another, and there's no problems.
Now
The
you-
accidents are limited because they're all slow traffic. Is it Illinois that's kind of telling you that's the case, or?
Well, actually, no, actually, the police chief and I were talking just before
Yeah.
the meeting, and he was saying about how IDOT's digging. I have not talked to IDOT.
Hmm.
The board here, which was a different board well over a year ago when I talked about this last time, told me that you can't have three in a row, and I just kind of chuckled because go on Route 23. There's three in a row, and that's a close spot to here. All over Wisconsin, there's three in a row, probably Indiana too.
It's crazy over there.
Now,
I mean-
with
But
with
not on
traffic
roads,
circles.
not on roads that are designed for 55 and 60 miles an hour, they don't
Route
put three in a
23
row.
is 55 miles an hour, and
And
there's
that's
three in a row, Harmony, I-90 in and off, and I-90 in and off.
IDOT, I spoke to IDOT recently about this, and I'll tell you, again, I'm going with what IDOT advised me on this, is that when they designed the roundabout at Plato Road and the roundabout at Burlington, that distance between those two roundabouts at the speed limit of 55 miles an hour, in theory, if you don't have accidents or something causing a hazard, is enough where traffic will continue to flow without backing up, causing a hazard. So this was his example, is when they engineered it and designed it, if you were going southbound on 47, you came through the Plato roundabout, you were traveling 55 miles an hour, you got to the Burlington roundabout. Traffic would continue to flow where it eventually wouldn't back up to the, say, the Plato roundabout, which we also have the school we were talking about, and cause bigger traffic issues. That was from IDOT, what he told me. Now, again, I'm not an engineer. That was just what he told me when I spoke to him the last time.
And we do get a lot of backups at the Plato when schools letting out or coming in, you can't get through. I drive through that all the time going to and from the firehouse. And it's dangerous for us actually there, going lights and siren, trying to go through that, especially with the kids, because they panic when they see us coming.
Trustee Muncy, go ahead.
Thank you, President Winnicky. First of all, several of us were on that previous board you mentioned, and I don't recall anybody saying you can't three roundabouts in a row. Somebody must have told you that after the meeting, because that wasn't part of the meeting. I certainly wasn't part of it. I work for a company that owns a contractor that's certainly installed three roundabouts in a row. In addition to that, though, have you done a study of what the actual, I mean, you're saying there would be a vast increase in response time. I'm not visualizing it. If you had to go through McDonald going west of 47 and then taking that to Burlington and taking a right to go to Burlington versus staying at 55 or whatever miles an hour and then going through the Burlington roundabout to get on Burlington, I'm not visualizing a significant increase in time. Has anybody studied that?
Our Station 1, which I don't know if you're familiar, again, when we opened our Station 1, and it was the old board, we invited everybody to our open house, and Actually, nobody from Campton Hills showed up, and I've sent some other invites here for different things, but Station 1 now, we either have to go up to Plato Road and go up and around roundabout and come down, or we cut down Dittman to McDonald and straight across to McDonald. Otherwise, we have to go south, do the roundabout, which is not as easy as with a car with a fire engine. They're not really designed. We have to, with our engines, actually kind of go up and around on that roundabout. That one, even the one on Bolkelman here, if we're coming to Fox River for a call, we have to go up and around. The ones on 23, the one at Plato Road, actually the ones in Pingree are even smaller, and we have to actually kind of cut around and go straight through where we can't. The roundabouts need to be engineered a little bit bigger. But if you look at the distances, you're going farther south. If you go down to Burlington Road in the roundabout, you got to do the roundabout. Then you got to go north, and you're going further west. Then you got to come back east to get in that. Or we go up and around, and we have to deal with the traffic in the schools and slow us up, and go farther west to Burlington, and then Burlington cuts back southeast, and then we still have to come east on McDonald Road.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it. If you have to go on McDonald and cross 47, why don't you just turn left onto 47 and then right in the roundabout on Burlington? I don't.
Again, what I just said, we have to go farther south, we have to go through the roundabout, then we hit Burlington Road. Now we're heading northeast instead of coming straight across McDonald. Then we hit Burlington and McDonald. Now we've got to come back east. Pure and simple. It's more mileage, more distance. And fire trucks don't move at the same speed as a car does.
Okay, thank you. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, and I don't know enough about your fire engine or anything, and so I'm just not picturing it. I just know that Burlington and McDonald, and that appears
They're
like
not
it's
straight
that
roads.
different.
Burlington Road is on a pretty
Understood,
angle.
understood. Regardless, you're the expert on that. I am not, and, but one thing I would like to say is that I see our community as a destination, not a cut-through. I don't like it every morning when I'm on 47 at 6:45 or whatever, and I see how many people turn right onto McDonald, and I know that they don't live there, that they're going all the way past Randall to Stearns or wherever else. And I see it again when I'm coming back at, 5:45, 6 at night, all the people turning left onto 47 off of McDonald, and they're, also probably not residents. Not that I have anything against, people using our roads, but that's a small country road. That's what it was designed for. It was not designed to have high-speed, high-volume traffic going through our community. So this is just something to think about, and I apologize, it's 9:08, we probably shouldn't be brainstorming at this point, but what I've always thought, I've thought this for quite some time now, is that we should really try to push traffic to the county roads, to Burlington and to Plato Road, which are designed for high-volume, high-speed traffic. But how do you do that? Reduce the speed on McDonald to 35. Put stop signs at Kendall and Crawford. So now you have 3 stop signs between McDonald and Corin, and enforce that through the police. Make sure there's a presence there, so that drivers will start to know this is not that fast anymore, and it's going to be enforced. And then also, what would happen after probably a short period of time is the navigational apps will start realizing this is a slower route. I'm going to push people to the other routes because mathematically it's going to be quicker for them. I would prefer us looking at options to make McDonald less attractive to the commuters that want to cut through and make it a country road like it was supposed to be.
I live out there. I've lived out there for kind of that way for 30 years. McDonald has become the road of choice for people to go crazy on. And the reason is because Burlington's so wide open, and I know how people think. They think, I could be caught on radar, or, I can't see a police parking over here or something. So McDonald is a road. It's a bad road. I mean, it's been bad. It's bad at Corin, even though there's a 4-way stop there. I've seen some bad accidents. So I think it's one of those roads where, and this is going to happen. I mean, regardless of what Campton Hills becomes in the future, that we want to keep it more of a smaller community or more of a rural community. We're going to have people from 47 west of us. Some village could blow up and go crazy and start building like maniacs. And I think speed limit is the biggest thing. I think if you could cut that down, I think you'd make it where people just go, I'm going on Burlington. You know what I mean? Because I got 3 tickets on McDonald. So.
She didn't understand that.
So just, I'm sorry, Trustee Millette, go ahead.
That's, Trustee Boatner was next, so, yeah.
Thank you. It was 6, 7 months ago when another accident had happened and we were talking about this. I reached out to IDOT just brainstorming and Sam and Ray kind of brainstorming. You know, the rumble strips would be a great thing. And Ed, I really like your idea, just slowing down the speed. You know, I think I hadn't considered that. But have we met the criteria, do we know, for IDOT to make an improvement to that intersection? I know at that point we hadn't, and they have some pretty specific criteria, like for the roundabout, or really anything.
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, summarize, what everybody's talking here is a very large study that involves everybody in this room, plus other agencies, plus IDOT, plus type of stuff. One thing I've noticed, though, is we've jumped from a roadway to roundabout without even thinking about add lanes, turn lanes, et cetera. Typically, when there's an intersection improvement, those various alternatives are looked at. Agencies don't jump right to a roundabout, because there's some areas they work well, and there's other areas a typical intersection will work better. There's pros and cons to every single idea that's been mentioned. For every pro of stop signs to slow people down, there's the con of enforcement, or the greater speeds in between the stop signs, et cetera, type of stuff. There is a problem there, obviously. We're here. There is funding available through IDOT. There's something called a Highway Safety Improvement Program. Now, the typical local HSIP is not applicable to this on a state highway, but there is a way to coordinate and write information, appeal to IDOT for funding through their multi-year program. It's a very rigorous process to do it. You're involved in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 engineering, so it's not something that's going to happen soon. And I couldn't tell you what the final product would be, because that study would look at various alternatives. Everything mentioned here, plus every time you drop a concept, oh, and then we could do this, and, you know, type of thing. One thing I do want to mention is in IDOT's 5-year plan, they do have maintenance money for resurfacing of Route 47 in that area. It's just a typical resurfacing like they did on Route 64 through town a few years ago. Things like that change, but you know, that could be an approach that is something the village is looking at seriously about improvements there, is going through that, because the big authority on all of this is going to be IDOT. Okay, they're going to have about 90% of the say on this. And all of these studies take into account every single agency's, entity's concerns. Well, okay, if that's a concern, is there a way to alleviate it? All of that gets involved in doing a study on something like this.
Scott, am I correct? I apologize for interrupting, but McDonald Road, however, making changes to that, speed limit changes and/or installing stop signs, that's between Township Highway and Campton Hills. That does not involve IDOT, correct?
Once you're away from Route 47, that is your agency, your jurisdiction, yes.
Can I, yeah, I just want to jump in real quick. Okay, I have to be the buzzkill here. You can't put stop signs in to control speed. You can only put stop signs in to assign right of way. You have to make warrants for stop signs. When you put in unwarranted stop signs and things bad happen at them, you become liable for putting in an unwarranted stop sign. Speed limits, absolutely, we control speed limits. You know, we could set them, we can go up to the state minimum without a study, or state maximum without a study, because we're not home rule. We could also do a study, and that warrants it. We can do other things. We can do chicanes on the road that make it less attractive for people to drive. We could put a roundabout in at Dittman. That's all ours, if we wanted to. You know, that would be another thing that would make it, you know, to divert people not to want to go there because it's inconvenient for them. So, oh, that's right, Dittman's county. Well, we could probably get the county to help with it. for that purpose. We got more, yeah, I'd say we got more Pulitzer County than we do at 47. There you go. You'll put them right there. There you go. And that's the other thing I was gonna go to, Ray, too, is that, I mean, you can go with, you know, speed tables to the point where the district's comfortable with not bumping people off of meat wagons on those, not humps, or, you know, not speed bumps, because those are things used in parking lots. But you can use speed tables like the one that Lily Lake has on Hanson. I mean, that's another option. So I think the idea is probably, yeah, make it less attractive to be used as the main route. And Trustee Burson was just leaning over a while ago. I mean, we're still chasing ponds of Stony Creek here, too. I mean, this is, part of this is there's 800 cars coming out of that thing at various points of the day. So we lost that battle a long time ago. But I think you just started to say it, Trustee Muncy. I mean, this needs to be a task force type thing, or a work group type of thing to take a look at this, that would have both districts, probably all 3 districts in there, plus us, plus the county, plus the township, to see what we can do right now, which would be some, you know, can we drop the speed limit to 35? Does chief have enough time to enforce that actively enough that it gets word around that, you know, speed trap don't go through here? I'm always a fan of those. I told you, everybody's heard me, says the only thing that absolutely controls speed on a road is active traffic enforcement by the police. Everything else we can put in there just slows it down at the thing, and then the speeds between the thing is higher. So that's why you don't generally want to put in unwarranted stop signs, because studies have shown that people realize this, it was a BS stop for me to go here because there's not a lot of traffic. I'm going to speed up to go to the next stop sign. So we should look at setting up some kind of work group.
The one on the stop sign at Connor and 47, you could end that and cut that off, and it's not going to affect, I don't think, anything. Because there's one family, Swanson, that lives down close to Kendall. So going emergency service, you're going to take Kendall to get to that street.
We would take Kendall anyway from where we're at. We wouldn't come around 47.
So cutting that one off isn't going to be an issue. And Mr. Swanson's already communicated he'd be supportive of it.
Go ahead, Jan. Yeah.
Go.
Go.
No, I just want to say, whatever you guys decide, I will do. I can get some, oh, I'm sorry.
So whatever you folks decide, because we can't take care of the roads for you, and whatever's legal, as Mike had said, and the ideas that Ed has brought forth, and Scott, I mean, all these different suggestions are all valid suggestions, and what we have to be careful what we do as far as the legalities of it and complying with the law and the liabilities. You just figure out what you want to do, we can do it. He just told me tonight, we were just discussing this a little bit earlier, he can help me with the rumble strips if you decide you want that. If we did lower the speed limit, that would be great. If he can enforce those changes, that would be great. All these things will work together if we just all put it together and make it happen. But I think all the ideas that have come forth, and I understand the chief's concern too, because there is a certain amount of travel time. They have to be very careful, though they want to be able to respond as quickly as possible. So there's and I think some of the ideas that got thrown for cutting off that section of road, making it a dead end, but making it passable for their emergency vehicles, that would be great. So when you guys decide what you want to do, just let me know, or Sam know, or all of us, you know, down there, and we'll get to work on it and get it done.
Well, Larry Trainer, because most of these changes are in Plato.
Well, actually, they're in Plato, but you have the decision-making authority because it's your municipality.
Oh, for
and
sure,
he's on board with it because you've talked to him, I've talked to him, and he works together. We work hand in hand all the time. Whenever I got to do stuff up there, I converse with him on a regular basis. I try to work together with everybody. So I
just want to be clear on the jurisdiction. It is Plato.
It is Plato Township, but it is the village. It's the village, you know, the village's jurisdiction is what I'm trying to say. And he doesn't really want to be bothered too much with the stuff that goes on for the village. He relies on me to make sure it gets handled, because he gets the complaints, but, because he is Plato. But he and I keep in touch all the time, and if he spots something, he calls me. So I'm good. That's all I want to say.
Thank
You
you,
decide,
Ron.
we'll do it.
Okay.
I think we've.
Yeah.
Has anybody got anything new to add from the board? I think we've got a lot to, Chief and I'll gather more facts and bring them back to you at another date too.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing? We're not obstructionists to this. We just want to make sure that we serve our citizens
Sure.
like you want to serve your citizens. And believe me, you can ask the chief, I'm the one that stands out there all that time with all those accidents out there too, in command or being the extrication officer or whatever. That lady in that semi took us an hour and 27 minutes to cut her out of that car. She's still alive. We got that yesterday. We don't have all her conditions and stuff, but that's a long, that's way beyond what we should be doing out there. And we agree that we need to do something out there, but like I said, we're not being obstructionists. We just want to serve our citizens too and make sure that we do the best job that we're doing for our taxpayers. Thank you.
All right. End of discussion, moving on. Good. Okay, 8 additional items from president, trustees, or attorney.
I've just got one. We want to make sure that everyone saw that letter that was going to St. Charles about I think it's been on Facebook and one of the community groups about development of the Pulte potential development south of 38 down to the LaFox train station, all the way to Brundage and south to Kissinger.
Kessling.
Kesslinger. I want to say Secretary of State Kissinger. I'm sorry, it's late. That's a major development, but the village president and I do have a meeting scheduled with the administrator and mayor of St. Charles this Thursday to discuss, and I think you saw the letters that were circulated. Is there any issue that wasn't addressed in that letter that you would like us to bring forth in those discussions with either Pulte when they come to the table and/or St. Charles?
Yeah, well, let me read a little something I put together just to update everybody. The property is roughly 970 acres, and it was formerly called Settlements of LaFox. Well, Pulte has renamed it to Charles Farms, which, makes it sound like it's going to remain. A lot of it's going to remain farm land. What that isn't really, what's going to happen. Yeah. The properties, well, like Mark said, the proposed units are 2,011 units. I mean, just think about the amount of traffic that would create. And, oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. And then, it's incredible. And so they're asking for sewer and water from the city of St. Charles. That's why they want to be annexed in to the city of St. Charles. I just want to say the Village of Campton Hills opposes high-density developments and is considering the proximity of the settlements of LaFox to the village, which also includes areas around the LaFox train station. So they've rerouted Bunker Road, which now makes it easier for them to build houses right around Bunker Road, all the way up to the train station. Yes, it's all within a 1.5 mile jurisdiction, our jurisdiction with the village. We oppose the city-sized development on this existing farmland. I've been actively involved with a smart growth group whose focus are the benefits of open space preservation and low-density growth in hopes that this farmland remains in unincorporated Kane County. We had worked, when I sat on the Kane County board, we had worked out a development that was satisfactory for residents on Brundage and LaFox. There was a lot of open space, there were walking trails, it was low density. But I think that now is, they're not really considering that particular development because of their request to annex into the city of St. Charles. I just want to add that Kane County remains unique and a very desirable place to live due to the choices we have living in a more urban area, if you wish, to the east, or living in a semi-rural farm area to the west, like our village of Campton Hills and Campton Township. So as Mark said, we're meeting with the mayor on Thursday. We've already had several meetings to get several, comments and opinions as to what's going on. Nick, I was going to approach you because you lived in the city of St. Charles. You still have friends or acquaintances in the city of St. Charles?
I have a family, but I also own property in the city too, so.
Okay.
You mean like as far as having a voice or a vote?
Yeah, well, as far as the residents contacting the aldermen in their precinct, and that we could make it known to them that we are very much opposed to this development. Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, Ed, go ahead.
Just to clarify something, just quickly, internet searching here. Fox Mill is 688 homes on 275 acres. This is 2,011 units, almost 3 times the number of homes.
Yes.
On an area that is only 1.4 times the size.
Exactly. And if I'm correct, KDOT's formula for road travel is like with new development, I believe it's 10 trips per unit. So if you take 2,011 units and then times 10 trips per unit, I mean, that's incredible. Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't see it in the original letter that went out months ago, but my understanding since then is that part of this proposal is for a new deep well in that subdivision.
Yeah, we're not 100% sure about that. It was showing on the first
Right.
concept plan. So we'll find out more on Thursday.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Because that would be a significant impact.
Oh,
to-
very
to
significant,
homes in the area.
yes.
And there's, we've
Yes.
talked to Trotter, and it depends if it's a deep well, how the impact would be versus shallow well would be much more impactful to the current residents that
Is it?
have
I mean,
shallow wells.
Well,
There's 2 different aquifers. They don't touch each other. Yeah, so. But that's an issue we'll bring up with St. Charles, definitely.
Okay, I think that's it. So, I'm sorry, trustee
One thing,
Millette?
if I may, I just wanted to mention something. So, as some of you know, I think I've mentioned a couple times, I'm on what's used to be called the Illinois Terrorism Task Force. It's now the Homeland Security Advisory Consortium. But probably because of that, I've now been appointed for American Public Works Association. I am now on the National Homeland Security Consortium. And so we had a meeting, we meet twice a year, we met in DC in the spring, or in the fall, winter, and the summer meeting was here. It was last week downtown. So I am usually outnumbered by guns and hoses as the public works guy in there, but there's also, there's a bunch of FEMA folks here, there's, state EMA directors and stuff. So what I wanted to mention is, you get a lot of, you get the story that they were talking about, which was really interesting, is about after effects of mass shooting events and how you deal with not only the professionals, but the neighborhood and the schools when it's at a school. So going from something very somber to lunch and the breakouts when you get most of the interaction with everybody. And the director of the National Fusion Center knows about our police department. And I thought that was totally cool, because I'm there as South Elgin's Public Works Director, but eventually one of the guys asked me, oh, where do you live? And I said, well, it's this place, west of St. Charles called Campton Hills. And she says, oh, Campton Hills, I've heard of that place. And I'm like, really? Cool. And she says, yeah, we see that you guys, and everything that the department has done and that we've supported them in. And I was like, that was pretty cool that, somebody that's, a DC policy wonk person, said something, knows about our community because of how cool our police department is. So keep it going, Chief. It was a really nice experience.
That's why we're the #1 safest
There you go.
community in the state of Illinois. Yeah, that is cool. All right, any other comments? Okay. Oh, no? All right, motion to adjourn. Okay, moved by McKelvey, second by Muncy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
You know what?